a lot of times we talk about history, we always tend to focus on like the past, which, you know, if you talk to some of our other like Black and brown folks, it's a burden to kind of always think about past tense, but never present. So I would love to hear from you all around like, what are some people that you are following that you get excited about that are kind of paving the way for AAPI influences in the future?
When I think about that, I think about like athletes, because I think there's a stereotype of like Asians being like not athletic or like frail, or I don't know, like in TV they're playing, well, they used to just play nerds all the time.
Yes.
So like when I see like athletes that are like really strong or really fast or winning championships, like Shohei Ohtani, he's a Japanese baseball player for the Angels. He won the MVP last year, so it's like awarded to the best player. So a Japanese athlete being the best in all of baseball, that's like, I'm really proud of that. And then like the Cubs got Seiya Suzuki, who's really good. And just like seeing Japanese athletes, Asian athletes, like, I don't know, it makes the little Johnathan like really happy.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I'm gonna nod my head and pretend like I know what sports you were talking about, but
Baseball.
sports. Yeah. Similar in intentionality, but maybe different in vein. I think about two people. So Hassan Minhaj, who's a comedian. I mean,
He's very beautiful.
I think he won a Peabody. So that was really cool, but I have loved the way that his comedy has taken shape of not poking fun at our heritage, or like not poking fun and making our identity as a form of a joke, but really using that to like leverage and tell stories.
I think stories are the ways that we get to all lean into one another, and that's and I love, speaking of stories, just Korean cinema, Korean stories, Korean movies, Korean. If you like watch Netflix, there's just so many wonderful just filmmakers out there, not just only Korean, but like Asian American and just all over. The fact that we as a country are wanting to lean into that more together, I think that's very promising, and that's something that I am looking forward to in the future as well.
Personally, there's a woman I know, her name is Sandhya Oaks, and she is a spiritual director, and she like has just been such a blessing to me, seeing another Indian woman in a pastoral role, kind of like, I didn't grow up with that. And now being able to have somebody who's kind of like guiding and directing me personally has been like a gift. For sure.
It's unique what all of you guys were talking about. It's like all fields that none of our families or like our community ever went into, right? Like sports, creative arts. I think of Marianne J. George, who's part of Maverick City. And I was like, wait, somebody we know who was like me, grew up in the Brown Church, led worship in the Brown Church, like made it in the world. That's a really important part of our community. I think, I always think about her.
There's a Insta I follow called Asians for Mental Health. And I think what I've really appreciated, what's helped me in my own writing of my story and journey has been, we talk about suffering in our families, coming to the US at a cost for our futures. And what I love about diving into mental health is understanding also the cost of assimilation for our generation and even our kids. And I love that mental health is like a real great handle to understanding like what the future will be for AAPI, because it helps us re-experience our parents' history without feeling the trauma of it, and take the good things out of them.
So as we wrap up our conversation, AAPI, though it's a month on the calendar, for us, it's the rest of our lives. Like, we don't really get to stop doing this after the month of May. So I want to know, for anyone who is listening, for yourselves, like, what is one way that you feel like people can show up and support the AAPI community really well?
So I think like whenever I have conversations with like non-Asians, and there's like, something that's said that's maybe not, it's definitely not intentional, but it's not the right thing to say. And I think whether if it's an Asian person calling someone on it, or it could be a non-Asian person who notices that and calls you on it, I think that's important to speak up and say, hey, that's not okay, or like, that didn't sound good. Like, let's try to change that. I think it's important to call that, because I think this happens quite often, and it's not intentional, I'm sure, but it's just like a little few seconds to learn and just be better for next time. Yep.
I think growing up and like being an adult now, the statement to us was always like, go back to where you came from. You don't understand because you don't belong here. Or like, oh, like, where are you actually from? All of those statements are actually like a little bit rude. Not a little bit. A lot of them are really very rude, right? Like, where are you actually from? Like, when I would say like, oh, actually I'm American, people are like, but where are you actually from? Well, my parents immigrated, but like, I grew up American. So like those kinds of statements, like, I love that I'm Indian, but also like acknowledging my American heritage is really important to me.
I'd say actively don't stare. Like if you see someone that's different, or particularly an Asian person, just be aware that you see something different, and you don't have to dwell on it. Just move your eyes somewhere else, because we always notice when someone is staring. So
That's really
be aware of where your eyes are and don't stare.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's similar to yours. I feel like we always have to fight to prove that we're American.
Yes.
Like, I remember, like, as a high schooler, like, this was like post 9/11. I remember actively enrolling in JROTC to like make a statement and prove like I am as patriotic. I love this country as much. My humanity as an American is as valid, as affirming than what may be like the normative, what deemed is normative.
Absolutely. And don't always assume that if you see two Asian families in line, that they are together.
Yes.
You know, there have been so many times when I'm just going through the cashier line, and they just assume like our purchases are together. Hey, we're together. I'm like, actually, we're strangers.
Yeah,
we
we
don't know
have
each
no
other.
idea.
Yes. And that's totally unintentional, and it's individuals trying to be friendly and accommodating, but actually it's very offensive.
And you may not even be the same kind of Asian.
Exactly. Yes.
There's one in there, just assuming that
Yeah.
because the diaspora is so wide,
Yeah.
that each even section of like Asian culture has its own identity, culture
yes.
that is distinguishable from each other.
Yes.
Over the past year or 2 years with COVID, I know that AAPI hate has been escalating. And I think that it's important for people who are not Asians to really stand up against the violence and to speak up against it and stand with Asians and just, in that way show love and just really like, I don't know, make a statement, whether it's verbal or written, or like just really take a stand and show your support. I think it's really important to see.